I'm over the moon right now, just absolutely buzzing and taking it all in because this is pure, unadulterated happiness, and honestly, I just want to go get completely wasted, forget about tennis for a minute, and try to get myself into a better headspace and shape." That raw, unfiltered confession didn't come from a player who had just lost. It echoed through the humid air at Rock Creek Park just after 3 p.m. on Monday as the umpire's voice boomed across the William H. Fitzgerald Tennis Center, calling game, set, and match, 6-love in the third. In that singular instant, every single Filipino flag in the stands erupted into absolute chaos as 20-year-old lefty Eala Era from Manila completed a stunning WTA final by winning the last 9 games in a row, a magical, career-defining moment that sent the crowd into a total frenzy and secured a champion's paycheck well into the 6-figure range. Philippine media immediately scrambled to convert the prize money into pesos, with early reports estimating around 164,000 while others suggested an even larger haul, but let's be real, the cash wasn't the actual story here. The real narrative was unfolding nearly 700 miles away, where the world number one was doing something completely unexpected while history was being written in DC, and to understand why that matters so much, we have to rewind the clock 24 hours to Sunday night in Washington when heavy rains swept across the stadium and abruptly halted the championship match, leaving the final hanging in agonizing suspense. When play was suspended, Jessica Pegula was in complete control, leading 6-4, 4-3, and sitting just one solid service game away from ending Alex's incredible run with yet another heartbreaking runner-up finish. For Eala, that moment must have felt painfully familiar, like a ghost she couldn't shake, because she had lived through this exact nightmare before at Eastbourne in 2025 where she held for championship points only to watch them slip through her fingers before losing a devastating third-set tiebreak and leaving the court in tears. That painful memory was the baggage she carried into Sunday's final, the same demon she had to confront after an overnight rain delay while wondering if history was about to repeat itself in the cruelest way possible. But while Eala spent the night staring down the barrel of another crushing defeat, the woman sitting atop the WTA rankings was nearly 700 miles away in Toronto, focused on an entirely different storyline. Aryna Sabalenka had skipped Washington after her straight-sets Wimbledon loss to Naomi Osaka, choosing instead to prepare for the Canadian Open, and speaking to reporters, she admitted she wanted to get completely drunk, forget about tennis, and try to get better before stepping away from the spotlight to recharge both mentally and physically. Back on the hard courts in Canada, Sabalenka stood before reporters on Sunday and, according to verified WTA and Reuters transcripts, admitted she had huge hopes but confessed she had suffered during the summer swing with her body and mentally, openly talking about rebuilding her confidence and finding her rhythm again. Yet just 16 hours later, a 20-year-old ranked number 28 in the world was about to build something even more remarkable on the court, proving that while the Queen was regrouping, the Princess was ready to storm the castle. Ela's path to the rain-delayed Washington final was nothing short of extraordinary, opening her campaign by defeating Olympic gold medalist Jing Qinwen in 3 sets before knocking out defending champion Leylah Fernandez in the round of 16. In the quarterfinals, she stunned second seed Elina Svitolina, a former world number 3 and Wimbledon semi-finalist, with a commanding 6-3, 6-4 victory, setting up a monumental semi-final clash against 4-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka, the very same Osaka who had recently defeated Sabalenka at Wimbledon. Eala rose to the occasion once again, and by the time she reached the final, she had already eliminated four-seeded players including a defending champion, an Olympic gold medalist, a former world number 3, and one of the biggest stars in women's tennis, making her run one of the most impressive performances of the entire season. She had dismantled every major obstacle in her path, defeating elite opponents in either straight sets or composed 3-set battles before finally facing Jessica Pegula, and while the story already felt historic, the rain changed everything. When play was suspended on Sunday, the scoreboard painted a grim picture with Pegula leading 6-4, 4-3, and Eala walking off the court looking destined for another heartbreaking silver medal, yet her mindset told a completely different story. Speaking afterward in the WTA post-match transcript, Eala said she warmed up 1,000 times and acknowledged the difficulty of rain delays, describing the high-stakes interruption as if it were just another ordinary practice day, which wasn't composure a coach could teach but rather mental strength forged through years of setbacks. Then at 2 p.m. local time on Monday, play resumed and everything changed in what was less a comeback and more of a complete demolition. Eala captured the final 3 games of the second set and then swept through the third without dropping a single game, winning 9 consecutive games from the moment the covers came off the court to complete one of the most remarkable championship turnarounds of the season. Jessica Pegula, the world number 3 and already a 3-time finalist in 2026, was completely overwhelmed after play resumed, managing just 8 points in the entire third set as Eala completed an astonishing comeback with a final score officially recorded by the WTA as 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. For those who had followed Eala's rise since her breakthrough in Miami, this wasn't a miracle but the moment they had been waiting for, rewarding fans in Manila, Dubai, Los Angeles, and around the world who believed in her when she was ranked number 168 just 19 months earlier. On Sunday, Eala wasn't the biggest headline, but by Monday, her historic triumph was the only story anyone was talking about, accompanied by a winner's prize of 252,000, roughly 15 million Philippine pesos, which was more than she had earned in many of her previous seasons combined. While Eala celebrated the biggest title of her career, the world number 1 was still reflecting on a difficult summer, creating a striking contrast between one player searching for answers and another announcing her arrival on the biggest stage. Aryna Sabalenka, a 4-time Grand Slam singles champion, had actually recognized Eala's potential long before much of the tennis world did, praising her future in an April 2025 interview with ABS-CBN's Diane Castillo and making it clear she believed the young Filipina had the talent to compete at the highest level. When the sport's top-ranked player identifies a rising talent more than a year before that player captures a major WTA title, it says as much about the scout as it does about the athlete, and that prediction became reality on the very weekend Eala lifted the trophy. Eala's breakthrough wasn't just a personal triumph but a massive commercial success for the tournament, with DC Open chairman Mark Ein telling Sportico that her matches generated exceptional ticket demand throughout the week. The tournament's decision to spotlight the young Filipina paid off as fans packed the stands to watch one of tennis's brightest new stars announce herself to the world, proving that people weren't just coming for established names anymore but to witness the rise of a new icon. Now the tour immediately shifts north to Canada for the National Bank Open where Eala arrives carrying not only the confidence of a WTA champion but also the expectations of a player who has suddenly become one of the most talked about names in the sport. Seated inside the top 32, she now enters tournaments with a target on her back instead of as an underdog, and every opponent understands that facing her is no longer just another routine match. A deep run could set up blockbuster encounters against some of the sport's biggest stars, turning every round into must-watch television before Cincinnati and eventually the US Open at Flushing Meadows, where Eala is now expected to compete as a Grand Slam seed for the very first time in her career. The entire landscape of women's tennis is shifting before our eyes as established champions battle to hold onto the top ranking and a fearless new generation rapidly changes the balance of power. Eala is now firmly part of that conversation, no longer simply a promising teenager but a proven WTA champion capable of defeating Olympic gold medalists, Grand Slam champions, and top-ranked players on the biggest stages. Perhaps the most remarkable part of this journey is how quickly everything has changed, considering that just 14 months ago she walked off the grass courts of Eastbourne heartbroken after letting for championship points slip away. That defeat could have shattered her confidence, but instead, it became the lesson that shaped the champion she would become, preparing her for the moment she stepped back onto the court after the rain delay in Washington to produce one of the most dominant finishes of the season. Today, she isn't carrying the memory of missed championship points anymore, she's carrying a WTA trophy, a career-defining victory, and the belief of millions of fans who now see her as one of the brightest rising stars in world tennis. The question is no longer whether Eala belongs among the elite, but rather how any top player plans to stop her from this point forward. Just 4 months earlier at the Miami Open, she suffered one of the toughest defeats of her season, falling 6-0, 6-2 to Karolina Muchova, a lopsided loss that served as a reminder of how much work still lay ahead. Instead of allowing it to define her, Eala quietly used it as motivation, and fast forward to Monday in Washington, the transformation could not have been more dramatic. Standing on the court with the WTA microphone after lifting the biggest trophy of her career, she admitted with complete honesty that at the beginning of the week, there was no way she thought she'd be holding the trophy, noting that these things creep up on you and she holds these moments close. It was a humble reaction that made her victory even more meaningful, but the quote that perfectly captured her journey was when she said she ended the tournament in better shape than she started. Those words summed up everything she had overcome, arriving in Washington carrying the weight of past disappointments and leaving as a completely different player who had transformed heartbreak into confidence and pressure into composure. At one end of the map, Aryna Sabalenka was regrouping after a difficult summer, while at the other end in Rock Creek Park, a new star was announcing herself to the tennis world, a contrast that perfectly defined the summer of 2026. This season will be remembered not only for established champions defending their status but for the unforgettable rise of Eala, whose breakthrough signaled that the future of women's tennis had truly arrived. In one unforgettable week, she delivered the Philippines its first ever WTA singles championship, completed one of the most remarkable comebacks of the season, and transformed what looked like another heartbreaking runner-up finish into a breathtaking 9-game winning streak. Her victory was a statement that a new contender has officially arrived, and every top player on the WTA Tour now knows she is capable of beating anyone. Now all eyes turn to Toronto, where the National Bank Open presents the next chapter, and if the draw eventually produces a showdown between reigning world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka and the hottest player on the tour, who comes out on top? Does the experienced world number 1 remind everyone why she sits at the summit, or does the fearless 20-year-old continue the incredible momentum of the biggest week of her career? That is the debate tennis fans around the world are already having, and we want to hear your prediction on who wins if they meet, so share your thoughts in the comments and let everyone know your pick before the next big showdown begins. If you love following the biggest stories in tennis, make sure to stay with the channel because from Toronto to Cincinnati and all the way to the US Open, every major storyline will be shaped by what Alexandra accomplished in Washington. This is no longer just a feel-good breakthrough or a temporary hot streak. It could be the beginning of a new era in women's tennis, and history suggests that moments like this are often recognized only after they happen. Right now, you aren't simply watching a rising star, you may be witnessing the start of a complete shift in the balance of power on the WTA Tour.